on to the next story that we are tracking after the country's biggest ever airwaves auction. The 5G spectrum assignment letters have been issued. Government has issued the spectrum allocation letters to telecom service providers, asking them to prepare for the rollout of the 5G services in the country. Now, with this spectrum allotment, India is in the final stages of rolling out high-speed 5G telecom services. Reliance Jio, Adani Group, Bharti Airtel and Vodafone Idea are the four major participants in the spectrum auction. Danish is joining us for more details here. Danish, if you can take us through the latest developments here and what kind of timelines are we now looking at?
5G is just few weeks away, and India will soon get to experience 5G. And this rollout will be a city-by-city rollout, and it is expected that in the beginning, the rollout will be in major metro cities and some other cities. So initially, the telcos and the government have together planned that there will be a rollout in at least 15 to 30 cities initially, and then it will be phased expansion. So the development comes a day after when the telecom operators submitted somewhere around 18,000 crore rupees as the 5G spectrum payout, and in that Airtel paid somewhere around 8,300 crore rupees, and they made a 4-year installment. And similarly, other companies like Jio paid more than 7,000 crore rupees, and Adani paid 18 crore rupees, and Vodafone Idea paid 1,600 crore rupees. So after this deposit, the government today has issued the letter, and according to that, they have been requested to slowly start rolling out 5G services across the country. So all in all, if you see, 5G services are just a few weeks away, and just a few weeks after, we will see 5G services running across the country. And one more last thing I would like to tell you, that this is one end. On the other end, if we see, the enterprises can also have their own 5G, and besides this, certain startups have also applied for free licenses for 5G. So that rollout will happen in a couple of months. So we will have smart factories in the country, and similarly, 5G will be soon rolled out in the country.
All right, Danish, thank you so much for joining us with all of those details. Let's bring in some more analysis and more details here. Mahesh Uppal, telecom expert, is joining us on the broadcast. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on Mirror Now. If you can sort of break it down for us, we just heard our reporter pointing out what the timeline really is going to be, but how is the rollout actually going to happen? When is it going to be it's going to be in the major cities first? What can you tell us?
Yeah, see, 5G is a service which is predominantly an enterprise-focused service. And while it is true that eventually it will become a more retail service, in the initial stages, we will see it deployed largely by enterprises and industry. Now, clearly, those areas are across the country. So in that sense, it is correct to say that the service will be rolled out across the country. However, it will not be rolled out in the way, say, 4G was or 2G was. We expect areas which are commercially important or where industry resides to be focused on and targeted by the telcos. And as far as the beginning of 5G services is concerned, I agree with your correspondent that it could be just a few weeks, because 5G services to be deployed in a small area, for example, let's say in a car factory, or let's say for a particular kind of application like gaming, does not require huge infrastructure. But clearly, if you're talking about infrastructure across the country, then in fact 5G needs far more infrastructure, and therefore will be subject to a lot of the challenges that we faced in 4G. So summing it all up, yes, industry will very soon begin to be able to use it. As far as retail customers like myself and you, probably it will be several months.
Right. So that is the point, because from what you're saying, it is going to be be used in areas where it's easier to sort of be put up, where the infrastructure requirement is not much. So then, what kind of a timeline are we then looking at for retail customers? Because even then, it would be only in the major cities first. So by the time 5G actually spreads across the country, it is still going to be quite some time.
Yes, indeed, it will be quite some time, and I would be very surprised if it's even less than 1 year. It will be probably more than a year before anything like a pervasive 5G service can be provided in India. So it will be targeted, and recall that it will. There is a good chance, by all accounts, that the service will also have a premium on it. So it will probably, as things stand, we don't know how the operators are going to price it, but the service could be 30 to 40% more expensive, going from what we are reading right now. And recall also that if you're industry, then you're not driven by prices in the same way as a retail customer is, because industry would look for value for money. And if they have a use for this service, and I do believe that a large number of industries can use it very readily, I don't think they are looking for bargains in the way that retail customers might be. And I think for an affordable 5G service to be available more widely, the time period will be at least a year, if not more.
Right. In terms of the kind of infrastructure requirements for that, PAN service of 5G that we eventually want to get to, and given the financial situation as far as some companies, whether it's Vodafone Idea or Airtel, are concerned, how do you see that sort of panning out? Because obviously it would require a huge amount of investments as well.
Well, yes, it would. And clearly 5G itself is a new technology. It's a little bit more mature now than maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but certainly it's still new. And it's the prices of equipment are not particularly, haven't crashed in the way they may have for some other previous generations of technology. Having said that, there are two things to bear in mind. 5G will need many times more towers, but fortunately, it will need lower towers and smaller towers. So the actual cost per tower may be less. However, the challenge there might be about location of these towers. For example, how easy or difficult it turns out to locate these towers on, say, electric poles or traffic lights, etc., which is what we will need, because 5G needs dense infrastructure, dense towers, many times more towers than 4G. So that will certainly be a time-consuming exercise. And so what the telecom industry talks about, the so-called rights of way, will continue to be a big challenge.
Looking at the kind of financial requirements that it would take for 5G to reach, different parts of the country, even in the interiors and the rural areas eventually, are the telecom companies, do they have it in terms of financial resources to get there, or is that going to be a hindrance to how fast 5G sort of spreads across the country?
Well, there are two aspects to this, Avni. One is, of course, the resources that the telcos have. But the other part is their estimation of what the demand is. Okay, so whether they have the ability to invest to meet current demand, I would say the answer is yes. But I think for 5G in particular, they will need to develop a market, because for an average user like myself, and probably most others, it's not as if I have 100 different uses for this technology other than faster download and maybe smoother streaming and things like that. So whether I'm willing to to pay a premium for something that I currently have only in a satisfactory way is something that we'll have to see. And so the customers in India have been very, very price conscious, more so than other places. So I think the business case for 5G, as we often speak about, particularly at the retail end, is still rather weak. So you may have a situation where operators will be able to meet demand, but probably not expand the demand, and may not have the incentive to expand that demand in the short term.
All right, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Mahesh Uppal, for joining us and breaking it down for us. So clearly 5G for the retail consumer, it's still going to be a while, could be anywhere between a few months to at least a year before the rollout happens for retail consumers.